Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neurolinguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one sessions in both French or English, and also do group setting. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachdanamzalike.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 10th and last episode of season 21 a very special guest and gratitude professor, Pete Alexander. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Pete, the floor is yours.
Dr. Dan, thank you so much for having me on your show, and I'm very grateful for your audience's time listening to this episode. As you said, I'm a gratitude professor, so I'm grateful for several things that keep me busy. I'm the president of what I like to call the greatest interior landscaping business in the San Francisco Bay Area, Office Plants by Everything Grows. In addition, I serve as an adjunct professor for Antioch University, where I help inspire my students to develop and apply key concepts of marketing specifically to their area of interest. And I'm also a TEDx speaker, a best-selling author on stress in your everyday life. And unfortunately, I learned that the hard way, that trading your health for your career is a very bad trade. And last but certainly not least, I also do volunteer work in the causes and organizations I believe in, including leading laughter yoga classes in my community and also performing improv comedy at local theaters throughout my community. So I really love to bring laughter to the people in my lives.
So you're Pete of all trades, huh?
I keep pretty busy.
Well, it's an honor to have you here today, Pete, and especially the topic that you cover about gratitude. And it seems like in our society, we are adverse to understanding what gratitude is, how people feel that simplicity is not really a way of life. They, as we mentioned before we started the conversation, you said everyone is trying to keep up with the Joneses. Nothing is enough because we live in an abundant society. So we always feel that we have not reached our ultimate goal or our objective or our financial purpose or whatever it is. So how can
Mhm.
we allow people, Pete, to detach themselves from that rat race that we're always on and start really appreciating the little things that are happening in our lives?
Yeah, it's a great question, Dr. Dan. Uh, the challenge that I had, I look back at my previous marriage, and unfortunately, my ex-wife, she focused so much on, okay, we need to have the bigger house, we need to have the better car, we need to do this and that because that's what's expected of us as working adults. And the problem is that when we focus on material things like that, we only get temporary, let's say, good feelings. Because what ends up happening is that then as soon as the car starts to get a little old or the house has something wrong with it, then it's all of a sudden, oh, now we got to get something, do something about that. And we start stressing about these things that really shouldn't require us to stress about. And what I found, one of the huge game changers that I found in relieving my stress was being grateful for the little things. And it's interesting. Um, One of the common things that people stress about is their jobs. If they're working, whether they run a business or they're working for a company, and they look at the negative, all the negative aspects of the job. And what's interesting is that there are, even if it's a terrible job, not a good fit for you, there's also some positives if you look for them and things that you can be grateful for. For example, you could say that, let's say you've got a job that you don't like, and throughout my career, I certainly had some of those, but the job paid me, so I made income from it. The job had, in pretty much every one of the jobs I had, I did have a friend here or there, at least a few. So you have friendships. The company, if it offers you benefits, you get benefits from that. So if you need that health insurance, for example, there's also the opportunity that it gives you a reason to get up and go in the morning. Some people are required to, because if they don't have a responsibility, they'll end up lying in bed all day, this kind of things. So you look at just these positives, and if you can write, let's say, 3 to 5 positive ones before you go to work or as the first thing you do when you get into work, it's amazing how applying that gratitude can change your whole demeanor for the day.
Mhm.
It's really interesting. Now, another thing that we forget is that, let's say we've got an ache or pain. We wake up and it's like, another day. Well, what's interesting is that in the entire history of Earth, there's been, let's say, 115 to 120 billion people who have ever lived on Earth. And right now, we have between 7 and 8 billion people
Give and
that
take.
are alive. Right. So the fact that you woke up this morning, you're one of those 7 or 8 billion people, which sounds like a lot, but guess what? That also means that, let's say, 14 out of 15 people who have ever lived on Earth are dead.
That's
We just won the lottery because we woke up. So the fact is you've got an opportunity by waking up in this morning that you can do something different, that you have an opportunity to do something today special. So that's one. And another one that always brings people down, or frequently, I should say, brings people down, is finances.
Mhm.
And so, thinking, oh, I'm not making enough money. I can't, I can't make enough money to pay for this, pay for that. Well, here's the interesting thing. If we take into account all of the world's income earners, not just the US, all of the world's income earners, the average income of those people, average, is around $5,000 a year. And if we are to make $5,001 per
Well,
year, we're in the top 50% of the world's income earners. Okay. And let's say we are lucky enough to make $50,001 per year. We are in the top 5% of the world's income earners. And that, when you start thinking about that, it could help change the perspective that, wow, okay, so, maybe I don't have to make so much money. I just have to be grateful for the money
that I
I
make.
am making. And it's just, it's simply a mind shift. It really is.
But doesn't that push people to settle with the situation that they're in when they look at this perspective? Because they say, okay, well, now I'm on the top 5%, so I should be good. So then when do people have to kind of push themselves out of their comfort zone to become a better version of themselves and maybe earn 100,000? So
Yeah.
does that split the decision-making process in terms of, okay, well, I'm at that point, I'm happy. But when
Yeah.
people say to themselves, well, you know what? I deserve that. I can do better.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you're well versed in this as well. I always recommend to people that they definitely, and if they need to, professionally elicit their personal values.
Mhm.
Because if you know your top, let's say, top 5 personal values as it relates, let's say, to your career or to whatever aspect of your life, whether it's your personal relationships, whether it's your career, whether it's your health, whether it's your family, etc. If you know what your top 5 values are, then if you've hit, let's say you're at $50,001 or more and you want to go to 100,000, okay, so that's your career. Look at your top 5 career personal values and make sure that getting $100,000 is in alignment with those top five values.
Mhm.
If it is in alignment with all five of those top five values, then that's your North Star. And you can go and you can hit that 100,000. But let's say if trying to push yourself really hard for that $100,000 and it is not in alignment with one or more of your top five values, well, what you're going to do is you're going to end up creating unnecessary stress because each one of us, you know, your top five values in your career and my top five values in my career,
Are different.
we might have one or two that are very similar,
Mhm.
but we're going to have different ones. And does making more money, is that really important? So if let's say both of us said that one of our top five values was wealth. Okay, well then yes, absolutely, hitting 100,000 and 100,000 plus, that's going to be in alignment, and and we're likely to go after it. But if it's more about you know doing other things where you don't want to spend, let's say, 60 hours a week to try and get to that income level, then you're pushing yourself trying to do that and it's not in alignment with your personal values, you're just going to stress yourself out. And as you continue to stress yourself out going after something that isn't in alignment with your personal values, you're going to end up burning out. It's just that simple.
I see. So that in itself, Pete, if let's say those who know they have that desire to be able to reach that financial goal or that 100,000 plus,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of their five values, which is health,
Mm-hmm.
wealth. Um, but then, as you mentioned, sometimes they invest all their time into reaching that wealth at the expense of their health,
Mm-hmm.
and then they use
Mm-hmm.
whatever money they made to fix health
Yep.
also while trying to reach the well. So isn't that in a way counterproductive in the human mind to be able to kind of like for the moment, because I have still young and I have energy, I'm gonna put it on. I'm gonna get it through maybe 6 or 7 burnout in my life, but that's fine. At least I'm gonna get to that point of where I need to be. But then this is where at that point, the financial wealth that you reach is where you can say, okay, what's next?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, well, first of all, hey, hopefully if you've hit your that financial wealth that you haven't traded your health for that money. Because one of the problems that you can run into, especially when you're younger and you think that, your health is going to always be there, is if you push yourself so hard and you have one or more burnouts, chances are you're going to get a chronic disease.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, it happened to me back in 2008 because I had a perfect storm of stressful activities happening to me all at the same time. And what did I do? I did the classic, I'm focusing all on those things I have to take care of. I'm not going to take care of myself. And my body was telling me this is the problem. And I just kept on ignoring it. And what happens is our body just keeps on ramping it up until we pay attention. And unfortunately, what mine was stress induced diabetes. Stress, what it does by causing cellular inflammation in our bodies, it the cellular inflammation leads to chronic disease. Mine was diabetes. Others get cancer, heart disease. So those are kind of things that you don't want to incur because, as you said, you have to spend a whole bunch of money and time trying to regain that health. And the thing that I try and uh, have people think about is we've all had a really bad cold or flu, something like that, where all we wanted to do was lie in bed because we had no energy to do anything else. So put yourself in that situation where you have no energy other than because you're sick, you have no energy other than to lie in bed and ask yourself this question. What good are you at that point to your career,
Your
to
family.
your family, the people that you love? So health is so, so important. That's why they call it health is wealth. So we should never think about money itself as the only wealth we have, because our health, our family, the time we have, because that's another one that's so important. To me, our the time we have and our health are our two most precious assets. It's what we do with those that counts. And so what we have to do is then say, okay, so let's say we've hit a certain milestone. Let's go back to the 100,000 we've been talking about earlier. If we hit that 100,000, maybe it's time to reevaluate what are your personal values at this point. So your career, let's say your career, you hit that point, but now what about your personal relationships? What about your family? Have those taken a back seat to your career? And what's interesting, and it's kind of like it's a little bit, you might think it's a little bit of a morbid exercise, but what is interesting to think about, once you've hit a certain point in your career financially, or or let's say the title that you were looking for, now ask yourself, if your funeral was to happen tomorrow, what would you want to say, or what would you want the person who was doing the eulogy to say to the people who are sitting in the first two rows of your funeral? Because who is sitting in the first two rows of your funeral? It's going to be your closest friends and family.
Correct.
And if you ignored them for a huge part of your life, what does that say? So it needs to be, so when we're thinking about striving, our wealth, etc., our wealth is more than just money. Our wealth is other things in our life that we have. And when we think about gratitude, we shouldn't just be grateful for having a house or a fancy car. We should be grateful for other small things that happen during the day. I mentioned to you before we started the recording that my wife and I have this gratitude exercise that we do in the evening.
Mhm.
And either she asks me or I ask her, what were you grateful for today? And what we do is we recap the positive things that happened during the day. And those things almost always are small things. It's not huge things like, for today, or tonight, I'm going to be grateful for our conversation. It's just the simple things. And what that does is that ends your day on a positive so that you can actually sleep more restful at night.
That is so true. And so why are in our society, people have so much difficulty with work-life balance?
Hmm.
Again, we go back to our goals, our five values, and so on and so forth. But then again, if someone is so dedicated to be able to be successful as Zuckerberg or
Hmm.
as all the other people that we see online, etc., we cannot really detach ourselves from this kind of identity that we
Hmm.
have, this kind of
Hmm.
value to wanting to be able to reach the one of the top five richest person on earth, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
So again, everything comes at a price. So yeah,
Right.
you can accomplish whatever you want, but what will be the repercussion of that goal?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
Can we have it all? That's the question. Can we have both successful, say, business or life at the same time, successful family?
Hmm. Yeah, it's a very good question. And it all depends on that person's values, what they prioritize. Now, the classic line of work-life balance, I don't really believe in that, because what that indicates is that you should have this perfect balance. Like if we think about a seesaw where it slightly goes off one way, then the other, and stuff like that. I think it all depends on what your values are. And so you know, if your career and family are two of your top five values, as long as your decisions that you're making, if you're mindful of that, because anytime, it's not every decision we make, like if we're working in the office or somebody sends us an email, hey, is it okay to do this or that? That's a quick decision. boom. I'm talking about the more challenging decisions, the ones that cause us potential stress.
Mhm.
So let's say, going back to one of the big leaders of industry, but so if he or she is looking at acquiring a competitor, let's say, okay, so there's going to be a lot of work involved. They're not going to be doing it themselves, but they're going to have to be involved, etc. Okay, if they know what their top 5 values are and they say, okay, in my personal values, what is acquiring this business or buying another building for our business or acquiring equipment for our business or hiring a key person, or firing a key person, let's say whatever difficult decision it is, running that through your career values and saying, okay, if all of a sudden one or more of those values is not in alignment, then need to look at that again. Because whenever we go against our values, our top values, not a bunch of values, our top values, whether that's 3, whether that's 4, 5, 6, number doesn't matter. It's those are the ones that are the deal breakers, the must haves in our lives. If it doesn't fit one or more of those must haves, then you're going to create the imbalance that we feel.
Mhm.
But if it's in alignment, if that decision is in alignment, then it's going to be fine because we're not going to be creating that extra stress that we unnecessarily need. So it's all about figuring out what is important to you and then working and sticking to your North Star of values so that you will automatically have that balance over time because you're making the right priorities based on what's important to you.
So I know you mentioned earlier, Pete, that you wrote a book about how to manage stress. So
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
these strategies that you put in about, well, beside meditation, beside exercising, eating,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but of course, the stress level that we process in each and every one of us is going to be different. Is there something that is more universal that people who are listening to this podcast can apply?
Yeah, one thing that would be really helpful, and this is one that I love to recommend to people because you can do this pretty much everywhere, with the exception of when you're driving in a vehicle. So if anyone's listening to this episode while driving your vehicle or bicycle or whatever it is, go
And
ahead and hit pause. But don't do that. But what you can do is you go ahead and close your eyes. Go ahead and do it with me, Dr. Dan. Close your eyes, take a deep breath in, and I want you to go in your mind to a place you like to relax. Call it your happy place. Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's a park, maybe it's a lake, maybe it's your backyard, maybe it's a spa, maybe it's your favorite recliner. Wherever it is, go there now and take in all of your senses. So, what do you feel? Do you feel the sun on your face? Maybe the sand or the grass under your feet? And what do you smell? Do you smell the fresh air? Maybe the lotion from the spa? Maybe you made popcorn for your favorite movie. And what do you hear? Do you hear the wind blowing through the trees? Maybe the water splashing on shore? And what do you see? Do you see the blue sky? Maybe the green of the trees or the grass? Whatever it is, take it all in and take another deep breath in. And you open your eyes. It's a simple visualization that takes 1 minute. It can be done pretty much anywhere other than, like I said, driving a vehicle. And what happens is when we engage our senses in our visualization, it's telling our bodies to automatically relax. And as we do that, we slow our breathing and we breathe more deeply. And that universally works wonderful. And I've had people who will do this, even if they're working in a cubicle, they can do that. Or they might say, they have to go to the restroom and they go into a stall and they just sit and they do it, for 1 minute. And then that helps us ground so that we can not be so reactive, but proactive of whatever's going on in our lives.
So it's a form of self-meditation. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
I see. So where can people find your book? Because I'm sure that those strategies will definitely help them, especially those who are living a very stressful life.
Yeah, so simply come to my website, which is petealexander.com, PETEALEXANDER.com. And there's a link to the book there, as well as some other information and resources that they can use to help them reduce their stress.
And if they have to want, let's say, a consultation with you, can
Mhm.
they book an appointment on your website and just kind of talk to you like you and I, we had a conversation today?
Yeah, yeah. So I've got my email link there on the website, and if they want to just pick a time, I can send them a link to my calendar.
Beautiful. Well, Pete, that is all the time that we have for today's podcast. And I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. And thank you again for participating and inspiring our many listeners with your incredible knowledge. Now, we hope that you've all enjoyed today's episode. And I'm also very excited about the many upcoming guests that we have scheduled for season 22 of the Happiness Journey podcast, filled with inspirational stories just like the one that you listened today. Now, here are some concluding words of wisdom. Gratitude unlocks the fullness of life, turning what we have into more than enough. By recognizing and appreciating the gift around us, we invite joy into our lives. The simple act of thanks can transform ordinary moments into blessing and hardship into lessons of strength. Each day, let us find reasons to be grateful. And in doing so, we weave happiness deeply into the fabric of our being. Let gratitude be a guide and watch as the world opens up in wondrous ways. In finding gratitude, we discover the path to true and lasting happiness. My name is Dr. Dan Amzalag, and you may all keep pursuing your amazing journey in life.